and I could be quite wrong, but that there won't be any physical death. And maybe I'm just sensing something that's coming at a future date, but I can see that, there's a point where death will no longer be an issue.
Yeah, it's coming on fast. It's going to be with us within years.
Mm-hmm. I liked what Sayana said something in the book that you wrote about how death offers more possibility for those who have been able to shed their ego and their personality. Do you recommend that people continue to work on self-knowledge and being truthful with themselves and processing the past and so on and so forth in order to be as clear and to clear away as much debris as possible?
Yeah, it's the season for that, so to speak, and it's upon us so strongly. And the people that I notice just this spring so far, just very recently, who are doing best with it are those who are able to go deep and high. And I feel like that's the imperative in evolution, the radical imperative in evolution that scares some people, but also stimulates and very much pleases many people, which is now we're going to have to go deep and high. And when we're deep and high, then we can be in the middle in a living way. But we can't do it from the surface mind. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, stretch our vertical upward to the heavens, so to speak, and stretch our deep roots into the real living earth. And only both of those together will allow us to proceed in evolution. We need both.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like the tree of life.
Yes, very much so. A very similar pattern is in the star chart to the tree of life. In fact, I call the point overhead the crown. Mm-hmm. Astrologers call it the midheaven. I call it the crown. Get there. It very much is the crown. Top of the chart. It's the same tree. The same tree's in the chart. Chart's in the tree.
One of the things that I found intriguing in the book was something that many people talk about in different ways, and I think it might be a good idea to get your take on this, but that there's potential for there are two different potentials. There's a galactic federation and an alternate future force that's providing assistance in the form of incoming energies.
Yes.
Can you enlighten us a little bit about your direct participation in this and what it is that's happening and what they're sharing with you and what we can know about at this time?
Yeah, let me just say that I tune into, and so does Luminara, the woman that I'm with, who has been with me for quite a long time. We both we tune in with many different kinds of beings and worlds, although none of them very bizarre or anything, but they're just different aspects. And when it comes to tuning into kind of the central program of what's really going on without getting caught in names and stuff, I will say that we tend very much into a Michaelic stream, and we very much align with the Archangel Michael. Mm-hmm. And that path, which is very universal, it's not about a religion or a given, power group or something. It's a much more universal force. Doing things from that place, in this Michaelic way, everything always emphasizes the way the spirit forces teach me. Everything always emphasizes this aspect that I was starting to speak about the vertical and living deep and living high. But I'll put it in somewhat different terms here. What's happening is that what my prophecy, my revelation of what's going on is that we're actually on higher levels being kind of altered, awakened, quickened into that multidimensional field you were mentioning. And below, what's happening is we're being healed of what ails us in one way or another. Everything is healing us of what ails us, all the shadow stuff. It's really healing us. And we're living in the middle between these two. And so our physical is always being healed and our soul is always being healed. But our etheric is moving onward into a future space. And our spirit is guiding our etheric onward into this future space. And we experience that like the feminine, because the etheric tends to be equated psychically with the feminine. And so all of us feel the feminine pulling us forward beyond this, locked-in consciousness of the end of the age of the fishes. Mm-hmm. And she's just holding out her hand. Do you know what I mean? I mean the feminine in all of us. Mm-hmm. 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 You have a strong feminine in you.
Indeed. If you
so I'm not talking about a woman for you.
Right.
I'm talking about you. Just to clarify, because people get caught in this terminology.
Right. I feel that myself. I've had some guests on. Lucia Renee is one of them, who writes about the patriarchy, and she goes into more detail about what your books bring up about black magic and the rule of the magicians on this planet that are controlling things that are very dark. But you're saying that this is a time when that is loosening up, that the control of the patriarchy, or the dark forces, if you want to call it, is going to be released at some point, and we're going to be...
Oh, yes, it will. It will flare up like crazy before that point, and yes, it will be released. On the soul level, human beings have to dramatize things to a point of extremity before they move with things. So that's how we're doing it. We're just exaggerating it all so that we can get it over with. That's what I meant about the end of an age. Everybody knows to just go into their karma.
That makes so much sense. And it's so obvious if you're not completely deaf, dumb, and blind, and even if you are, you could easily pick up the vibes, probably more than somebody who has their five senses functioning.
Yes.
So, and it always scares me to see the television generation that I was born into, this kind of virtual world of hawking and selling things, just kind of enveloping everybody like an octopus. And I've had to, disconnect my television set and stop reading the newspaper. And I mean, there's just a certain point where the foolishness and the buffoonery just is intolerable.
Yeah. Yeah, we certainly have reached that point. The USA is definitely going through an ultimate crisis. Mm-hmm. Has been since 9/11, 2001.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Many people are saying that was created by the dark side, or the powers that be. I suppose it doesn't matter, but
there are so many good conspiracy theories about it, because it was the most overdone Hitchcock-esque version of a collective crisis that has ever existed. And I'm mentioning here Alfred Hitchcock, who always did overdramatic effects. Yeah. And so every possible way we could look at it being caused by some strange thing is true. Uh-huh. it is caused by so many strange things. It was the convergence of all strange things. And what it did typically was it did something physically awful and etherically very, very wonderful. It physically meant that sort of set into motion a series of shock waves that are now, the economy shaking down and the whole psyche of the country really breaking down at this point, all from that. It was like a physiological disaster that never stopped. Mm-hmm. And etherically, paradoxically, what's come of this is that there's a possibility that the American spirit will renew itself. And it comes from that event because people were so stunned. So the very thing that's impossible and unbearable may actually lead to the Renaissance itself, because America is a bizarre place. It avoids death, but when it experiences death, it goes through it very intensely and then emerges in a different state, and it's possible that'll happen.
Yes. But we are going to see. It does seem that we haven't seen the death yet. That the uprisings that are occurring all over the globe, even though you could probably trace them to the specific causes, hasn't quite hit here yet. Do you feel that there's going to be further breakdown and collapse in the American dream in order for us to wake up from the sleep and denial that we've been wallowing in?
Yeah, it will take more, because kind of the motif of the U.S. is Hollywood, really, and basically the idea is always to kind of go on vacation and then to have a great time. That's kind of what Hollywood's really saying, is life is a vacation, have a great time. And even the darkest movies are ultimately about being entertaining and diverting and allowing you to so-called escape. So we have this culture that's always trying to get away from something, what I'm trying to say. And we're very much trying to get away from our own end-of-life disease. But it's usually those who deny major illness like this do suffer